Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This is our next episode where we get to meet one of our ambassadors. Today, I'm hosting Patrick Lehrbach. Patrick, welcome
Hi.
to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sohrab. Thanks for having me.
And as usual, the intention of this conversation is to get to know more about the ambassador, not so much about myself. So, Patrick, similar to the question that I asked to everybody else, where did your agile journey start?
Yeah, good question. So when I was like 10 years ago, when I started my career as a as a project manager, it was a strange role mix of well, nowadays you would say product owner, analyst, and scrum master in one person. So that really struck me. That got me kind of angered because yeah, at that time everyone came basically at me asking me for input, asking me for decisions, and so on. So that was really tough time. And at that time, basically in parallel, I yeah encountered a training actually, a Scrum Master training, and
Mhm.
during that training, I learned other methods of how you could handle teamwork basically, and that was
Mhm.
basically the start of my agile journey, if you say so. At that time, it was with IT Agile in Hamburg, so that was my first touch point. And yeah, from that on, I stick to agile.
You stick to agile. So you mentioned briefly the context that you were in, being in a mixed role of a Scrum Master, product owner, business analyst, if I recall it correctly. Now, after the training that you participated in, what kind of changes did you make?
First, I really thought, wow, how to do that. So it really felt to me to be on a mountain now, and it is totally disconnected to the world I'm working in, actually. And then I started really with the sense making process. And I think that's also nowadays when I look towards, okay, what can you do as a freshly trained person? First, probably nothing, but reflecting. Okay, what could be a first step? But at that time, no one took me there. So I was really overwhelmed with all the stuff I learned. I was inspired and I was really enlightened to do it. But at the same time, I was overwhelmed and couldn't find the first small step. So I said to my colleagues, we need a complete restart because what we are doing is miles away from an effective, productive um, team cooperation where we would be able to deliver. And that led, of course, to a lot of resistance because people that are used to working in a specific style, yeah, they won't buy in that easy. With me, okay, I'm coming from a training now, let's change everything. So that simply doesn't work. And yeah, that was my not so, let's say, first encounter after the training, first step.
Training. Yeah. I think the resistance that you're describing, many of the people that hopefully will listen to this conversation are facing as well, right?
Mhm.
You participate in a training, you find something curious, interesting, you become curious about it, you learn more about it, you're like, oh, that's exactly what we need to do. But then not everyone on your team, let alone everyone on your organization, is as thrilled as you are.
Yes.
So, what did you do based on that initial resistance that you faced? How did you ultimately, because at some point, I imagine
Yeah.
you managed to convince the team, but what were the things that you did to take the team on that journey and not only yourself?
Yeah. At that time, we have also been, I think, yeah, we had also, it was a production company, so they're producing washing machines and stuff. So it's also kind of close where you live, big one, big company. And I was on the other side, let's say, bringing the team for the software development in. So we had two different companies, and that was also making it more complex. Um, my first move was convincing someone from the real customer side, to be a product owner. And that changed really a whole lot because with him, so I was product owner, as I told, Scrum Master and analyst in one person. So I made all the decisions, but they are not necessarily what they want in that organization or what they need in that organization. So basically, I had to sit with a lot of stakeholders, create an opinion, and these kind of opinions, they are just built on assumptions I do as a worker from the outside, let's say. So you look into a clockwork, but you are not part of the clockwork. And that product owner, basically, he was part of that clockwork. He had more generative understanding of what they need, and that was actually, I think, the first really effective step that we then took after that long time of discussing what could we really change. And what also helped was that the classical project management approach came to a natural end, because we had a lot of escalations at that time as well, where business, also a classic, I think, business and IT sitting into, how do you call it? Yeah,
Different units or entities or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, sitting and having already, yeah, kind of grounded their standpoint already very fixed. So there was not a lot of movement and not a lot of argumentation possible anyhow. So we needed a restart anyway. So that those two things really changed a lot. Mm. One other thing is really talking to those who are in sponsorship. So really to do a co-design and contracting with those in sponsorship. So at that time, now those words sound very elaborated. And at that time, it was really like we were in an escalation mode. So I had anyhow to talk to them. And that was my luck at that time, because at that time, I didn't know that what I know today about working with leadership. So we had to talk. And that was also a good thing, because we have been in that escalation mode, they also were eager to change. And sometimes if you have like a somehow working project mode, it's not that critical. It can get also difficult to have this kind of confirmation, to have that kind of buy-in from the management side, from the leadership side, to really do a change. And at that time, that was really lucky, coincidence, I would say, that in the bad thing of an escalation, we had all the important people also in the room, willing for also a new start. So I think these two things have been, yeah, a driver for that first moment.
Yeah. Now you mentioned lucky. I think it's also sometimes a matter of seizing that opportunity, because not everyone knows how to bring all the relevant stakeholders into the same room, which is an important skill in itself. But then also laying out the pain that might be obvious to some but not to everyone,
Mm.
which the status quo brings with it, and then convincing people that there could be a better way. I think that also needs to be done. Now, let's move from that initial project, right, where your agile journey started. Where did it take you afterwards? And maybe even let's stay with that. What were the results that you as a team and you specifically as an individual achieved, which made you stick with this? Because otherwise you wouldn't be where you are today.
So after I could hand over the accountabilities of the product owner, I could focus more on being a Scrum Master. And I thought at that time that would be my real leverage point to help the team. And yeah, so that was then a starting point basically also for working with the team. So in the beginning, there was also some resistance in that project, because the team also, they got used to a working style where they ask me, like the man in the middle. I shared before. So you had to do every tough decision. So I mean, that's also kind of in comfort zone for a developer, kind of.
Mm.
When you have someone else who is taking over responsibilities, and they got used to it. So it took some time actually to change this, because responsibility, you can't hand them over. They need to take the responsibility for themselves, and you somehow, I was I needed to trigger their intrinsic motivation to take that responsibility. That's at least my take, or to take over the responsibilities of making those decisions, more themselves, than rather than looking for every step at another person. And to give you an example how that looked, that it's not just that cloudy, or sounds that cloudy. There has been, at that time we worked on Adobe Forms.
Mm.
So a decision was a field in an Adobe form. How should it look like? What should be the label for that field? What's the length? I mean, really basic decisions. You would say someone who is working in that environment can do for himself and really offer solutions and show, okay, that would be my idea. What do you think? These kind of stuff. And that really started from a point where people had to unlearn that someone else would take all the decisions. And lost a bit track of your question, probably.
No, all good, all good. So the question was the successes, the achievements that you had in that first project, which then also made you to stick with that topic,
right.
and where did it take you afterwards?
Right. So yeah, the turning point then was actually that team. They found their intrinsic motivation, fast forwarding about 1 year, and they really turned into a delivering machine. It was really one of my rare cases where I would say I saw a really high performing team. That doesn't happen too often that I would say it's a really high performing team, and in that case it turned out to be one. We also had a high level of trust in that team in the end, so it took a while, but after that while we really felt that we are successful, and we also got recognized and the organization around us noticing our success, asked for, okay, what did you do exactly? How can we copy that? And so I was promoted to be the head of the project managers, and I was asked to share my knowledge and to also enable them to work in an approach like that, to put it on a meta level. And what I was then basically doing was I was sharing my knowledge with the other project managers inside that organization, and turning them to Scrum Masters, and basically showing them how to enable the customer side to be product owner, and the team to work more in their accountability area of being developers, and themselves letting go. Project managers tend to micromanage also from time to time, especially if you have that kind of skill cut that I explained earlier, where you are the analyst as well, and where you are also the product owner and also Scrum Master in one person. So you tend to lean in a lot and micromanage. So basically that has been success, I would say. So also people started working in that way, also started to change their projects more towards the agile way. And for us, it was really a no-brainer, because we didn't have the most complex applications that we developed at that time. It was for mobile business applications, and it's a real showcase for agility, I'd say, because you have a backend that works already. So you set up a mobile application for mobile use. You extract basically data from the backend to use it in a use case for a, let's say, service technician who's going to a machine, going to a customer, fixing the machine, writing bills, selling some products, whatever, with a laptop or a handheld device. And in that environment, I'd say it was really, kind of helpful to use to leverage Scrum and agility.
Yeah. So you mentioned something which immediately caught my attention, which was you helped other people become Scrum Masters.
Mhm.
So, and this doesn't happen that often, where someone within a year or two, having started out themselves in that role, also then becomes an enabler of others. And in medical terms, I would always refer to this, or how we learned it in medical school was see one, do one, teach one. So you very quickly moved into that teach one. Now, walk me through what that did with you and how that then also changed your career afterwards.
To be honest, first I thought I had it all for a short moment, and then I recognized there's so much out there to learn. I mean, it sounds like a really steep rise, and it was successful in that means of, if you look at where we started, I mean, having that in place, at least if I compare to now, I could deliver so much more wisdom than back to at that time in that area. But for that environment where we worked in and where the people have been knowledge-wise agility, it was already a good step of having those teachings, so to say. And those first teachings really were based on my experiences in that 1 to 2 projects, really small, let's say, narrative style, I'd say, based on the experiences, sharing, and sense making. That has been really the first thing in a nutshell that I was doing then as an enabler. And I wasn't coming, yeah, I'm telling you. I was more like, hey, I share you my experiences. Let's digest it together. Let's do some sense making, and then think about how would you apply it
Yeah.
in your
What does it mean for you, basically?
yes,
Right.
in your projects, products, for your products. How could it work? And sometimes it did pretty well, and sometimes it didn't. And where it didn't, I was asking myself, okay, I thought my my way of doing could cater it. So what's the thing that is here special that it doesn't work? And that got me curious. And so I kept digging and tried to also to connect to others that were on that Scrum evolution path, I'd say, and searched for answers as well in the community.
Yeah.
And that's
So
when I expanded.
that's when you expanded. That's when you knew you didn't have it all,
Yes.
and now you go on your own growth journey. So Patrick, now walk me through what were the steps between that very first project that
Yeah.
we covered and the Patrick that we see today.
Okay, we gotta go to a meta view now. So that has been like basically the first 2 to 3 years then, and that's 10 years ago basically then. After what I just shared, so then I recognized, okay, it's not always about just a good methodology, a good framework like Scrum, and it's also about people. So what changed for me really has been that I nowadays work more people centric. That's also where the coaching comes at play. Um, and I shared about resistance, and that happened to me also sometimes then on the path to now. That basically I met people I worked with. Sponsors said, "Hey, have a better agility, improve Scrum, tell them how it's needed to be to work with Scrum." And that's where the failure starts, telling them to do. I mean, meeting them where they are would be a better thing from my perspective now. And that's what I learned then during those years. So changed my approach completely. And nowadays, when I come into a new or meet a new organization, meet a new sponsor, meet a new team or organization basically, then first thing I do is meet them where they are. So really watching, okay, what's working for you already, and where are your pain points? And whereas in the early times I was jumping in and focusing down on the pain points just, but there's also decisions that brought them to the way they work now that do work for them basically, or that do some positive things for them. So also to recognize that and to acknowledge also this kind of thing that they're already achieved basically.
Yeah.
And
I think that very, very important aspect, because what I see happening with many people in our community, unfortunately, is that they come across as a know-it-all. So they move into organizations and they're like, everything that you're doing is wrong and you should be doing. I hate the word should, right? You should be doing this, you should be doing that, you should be. And at the same, and that's also an indicator of a lack of appreciation or acknowledgement, as you phrased it, of what the organization had done already, right? Who am I if I come into an organization that has been successful for 100 years? Well, my oldest client is 404 years old, right? Who am I to tell them
yes,
you're doing things the wrong way?
yes,
Now, it's a completely different question if I come in and say, wow, incredible what you've built over these centuries, not even decades.
Yes.
Now, walk me through, why did you call me?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What is hurting you? Where do you see improvement opportunities? And obviously, then observing, I can also add a few more of my own perspectives, but always with humility, right?
Yes.
Not saying, oh, you have to do this, but more like, hey, what if
Yes.
we change this? What could be the outcome in your context, right? With the curiosity, with the humility, I think that makes such a big difference. And also, you mentioned earlier how important it is to get the sponsors on the board.
Yes.
It builds that trusted relationship so that they are on board, and then you can do so much more with them.
Yes.
Um, how do you look at that, Patrick?
No, it resonates completely with my approach, I'd say, and with how I look at it. So it's the trust also. So if trust would be a river, that's the river we can navigate this kind of change that we envision also to do in such a organization. And once we covered that meat aspect, how I called it, so we met the organization, we did also observe what's working, what's not, what's maybe pain point, and where they wanted to look for change. Then we come also to a point I would call reveal. So showing observations I do, as you framed it. Okay, yeah, I do offerings. So adding my own perspective in, and then have kind of alignment on, okay, where do we go next? So what do we do together when I'm your coach? How can I cater for, so what's focus points of my work basically? And once aligned on that and having that co-designed, yeah, it all starts. So then the coaching really takes action. So in most of my, funnily, in nowadays, I'm most often working with the product owners in the product environment.
In the product environment. I mean, that's also where you basically came from, right? That's
Yes.
your very first assignment.
Yes.
It's interesting how those early things that we did as part of that journey still stick to us.
Yes.
Now, Patrick, that's a great segue because I wanted to ask you, what do you spend your time on today? Right? You mentioned already you mostly work with product owners, I assume,
Yes.
in a coaching capacity with them. To what extent do you also run educational programs,
Mhm.
quote unquote trainings? How much time do you make for your own personal growth and development? Because I believe most people in our community are super focused on not only helping our clients grow, but continuously growing ourselves. That's part of our growth mindset. So, how do you balance all of those things out?
Yeah, good question. Good question. Um, I start with the personal growth. So I'm currently doing the last steps of my coaching certification for team coaching. It's called ORSC,
Mhm.
Organization Relationship System Coaching. And that really is also an enabler to me to step outside, step back, watch myself, rewatch my approach, have supervision sessions. That's really, really important to me for growth and for, let's say, resetting my viewpoints, my perspectives from time to time,
Mhm.
because it's a neutral, kind of neutral way. So you meet others, you exchange um, things that happen to you, you get other perspectives in, fresh-minded. You go back to your customers then and bring in what you learned, and keeps helping me to keep that meta view. So getting outside for own growth, let's say, things is really important to me. And that can be like this coaching certification. It can also be like a trainer, getting more tools and methodology under my belt to get more efficient as a trainer, because I think that's really my next step. I told you before we had that recording already, but yeah, I'm not doing that much of real training, I'd say, group training. So the training I'm doing is more like educational impulses with teams I'm working with, or in
Mhm.
organizations like leadership groups, or the teams I work with, or inside of a mentoring with product owner or Scrum Master. that's basically the kind of education I'm bringing. Is more based on, okay, bringing in an educational impulse, I'd call it, and then reflecting together on options. You could also write consulting as a header, but when it's a group inside of a leadership team, it tends to be more a short training, I'd say, because it's always a team. Yeah, but most of my time I'm really doing in that coaching environment. And when it comes to training, I'm also part of a advanced Scrum Master training, doing the coaching part there. So I'm having like a help role of teaching some coaching skills there, and also doing something that I invented from my hobby called box coaching. It hasn't necessarily to do a lot with Scrum Mastering or agility, but it has something to do with personal growth perspectives and the ability of reflecting.
What was the term? Was it box
Box
coaching?
coaching, yeah, it's basically
Does it have to
boxing.
do anything with
Yeah,
boxing?
it's really martial arts boxing and coaching as a combination. So it comes from a therapeutical thing called Wutboxen in German,
Yeah,
which is anger boxing or somehow
yeah.
translated, and where you would go all out and then have a look at your issue again. So it really comes from that, let's say, area, and I ported it into the coaching. Yeah, and it's really it's a good way to sometimes have your body also included in in how would you say, in creative and innovative thinking.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, there's a great book called Bauchgefühle.
Yes,
I don't know how to translate that into English. It's basically
gut feeling, I'd say.
gut feeling. Yeah, gut feeling
Probably somehow.
from an Austrian professor of neurology, and the quintessence is basically, in many aspects, our body tells us what's wrong and what's right, right? And it's really about having that sense that you can listen into your body and then make sense of the signals that it's sending to you. So I can truly relate to what you're saying. And if I remember correctly, and this might be a segue into like the stuff that you do personally, you do martial arts, right? Yeah, yeah. So
Sure.
combining both of your passions.
Yeah, exactly. That has been my goal, and it started with me feeling really that when you do boxing, then shadow boxing is a big part of it. And some do yoga, other do dancing styles, and it can be a kind of or a form of meditation. It sounds maybe far away or far fetched, but it really can get to that point where really in a slow pace do movements. It can really bring you to some state of yeah
Flow.
of flow. Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
of flow,
So
and
like
that's
Tai Chi, but with boxing moves.
kind of, yeah, kind of. You could say so. You could say so. And yeah, and you can go each intensities that you like, and that's what I love about it. I mean, it's not always all out and pushing. Most people would envision it like that. It can also be like slow, laid back, relaxed, depending on the mood, basically. That's what I like about it. And yeah, the all out is also good. I mean, for cardio health and stuff, I also like to do it. And yeah, I'm also a self-defense trainer in my free time.
Cool. So if people start working with you, there's a lot of stuff that they can do. Now, Patrick, in order to stay more or less within our time box,
Yes.
my final question for you, and I asked this also in other conversations, what would be like the requirements within one client or organization that allow you to do your best work?
So the first thing that comes to mind is authentic. So really having a clean slate, having putting stuff on the table, that would be
Mm.
really best case.
So
If I need
honest, Mhm.
again,
Open, honest
yeah,
conversation. Yeah.
open, honest conversation, bringing stuff to the table that would kickstart us. I mean, it also would work the other way around, that I would really invest and also meet people, do interviews and stuff. It most times works like that. But if you ask for the best, Then I would say if you wanna, as a client, save time, then an honest open start would be really, really cool to kick starters off. And besides that, I don't have any specific things that come to mind. So I think it would really help to have this open, honest opening to our work. Also sharing what's really possible in terms of change, where are boundaries, and yeah, what is really expected, what's really the wish, a wish for
What's really
change.
the wish? What's the pain, basically?
Yeah, the pain. Sometimes I really try to look at it. I mean, complaining, the German cultural thing that
Yeah.
sometimes happens, sometimes. And I'm also guilty, yes. But there is a wish behind every complaint. That's how I like to look at it. And to find that wish. There's a wish
That's the
behind
top.
every pain,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a great way to end this conversation, right? There's a wish behind every complaint, and it's really the curiosity that allows us to identify those wishes, and then based on the patterns that we have collected, the tools that you mentioned earlier, help our clients to get to what they wish for. And obviously, they need to do the work. It's not only us that can do it, but we can assist them, right? Like the box coach that does that. Patrick, it was wonderful getting to know you better, speaking to you today. I hope this will also be a very interesting conversation to the people that are interested in getting to know you and in general our ambassadors better. So thank you for making the time and being so open about yourself.
Thank you.